everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 7 of Puella Magi Madoka Magica. I look forward to this week every week because this series is bonkers, right? But in the best possible way. It gives you such a thrill, and you're just sitting there like, oh my gosh, and this creepy thing is watching over me all the time now, so I can't escape it. But yeah, it's been storming all day, so it seemed like a very fitting time to watch this series and dive into episode 7, where we're past the halfway mark, which is exciting, sure. But I'm really excited about this series and for what we have left over, because last week's episode, the cat's kind of out of the bag that when you make a contract with Kyubey, your soul separates from your body and your exoskeleton becomes an indestructible war machine. No big deal. As long as you keep your soul nearby, you're totally fine. So that begs a lot of questions, talking about like your soul, using magic and how it supposedly darkens it, and that's a problem. There's just lots of things we talked about last week that I was like, these are all red flags. And I feel like now Madoka and the others are aware of these red flags. And so then the question's going to be, if Madoka becomes a magical girl, why? Why does she become a magical girl? At this point, she realizes that these things are very bad. We should probably not go through with this. But, I mean, there's so much media and artwork of her as a magical girl out there. It's like, okay, well, she's going to become a magical girl, but why? And to what benefit? Because so far there's not a whole lot of benefits. There's a lot of disadvantages to this magical girl business, not a lot of advantages. So how is Kyubey going to try and get this all worked out? So I do have a couple things I want to note. Someone had commented, and I apologize for not writing your name down, but this just escaped me, this comment, and I was like, I don't know if I'll mention it or not. Now I really want to. But the idea that Kyubey finds very opportune moments to get these girls to try to make contracts, typically when they're not thinking straight, like when Mommy had the car accident, and when Sayaka was worried about her friend, and when Madoka was like panicking about Sayaka being injured, Kyubey just came in and been like, hey, let's just make a contract real quick and we'll just get this all solved. He tries to take advantage of when you're at your most vulnerable and you're not thinking clearly, and then once you make the contract, it's too late. You can't go back, right? So I thought that was interesting. JVA pointed out that in the eye shot, the sunset that's behind Sayaka at the midpoint of episode 5, where she's like, I don't have any regrets. The sun is in the shape of the same eye that we see Madoka floating in during the ED. And I was like, I don't like that. And then Discord pointed this out. I'm going to show you all this image here. That, yeah, if you flip the image of Mommy and Sayaka and Madoka and Homura from the last episode, the end card, yeah, if you flip that over, it spells death. What the fudge, series? What are we doing? This series is so crazy, and I love it. I love it because it's just like filled with all of these Easter eggs and hidden things that you don't necessarily need to know these things to get the full impact of the series. But once you know them, they add so much depth to the show itself that you're like, what is happening? So I'm really excited. But I don't have any other comments from this last episode, but I'm super, super, super excited to see what's going to happen with our crew and how this is going to go. And I'm terrified. I couldn't wait because I wanted to see like what was going to be the impact of Sayaka's soul being too far away from her body and her shutting down. Like, and now that they all know the cat's out of the bag and Kyoko's pissed, what is that going to result in? So let's find out, shall we? So we're going to do exactly that and just see what all we get this episode, but we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to start episode 7 of Puella Magi Madoka Magica, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do it to it, Lars. Well, that was depressing. That episode was so good. The show hasn't missed. It's been really good, but this episode was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking on so many levels. We finally got information about Kyouko and that whole backstory with her. Oh my gosh. And then, can I just say, you know what? A lot of people have gave me some grief in the comments because they're like, why are you giving Sayaka such a hard time? And I will admit, Sayaka at first, she was not my type of character. I was like, oh man, I don't like Sayaka. I don't like the way that she handles things. We've talked in the comments and in the intro about how she kind of just berates herself and she's down on herself. And I'm like, come on, girl, pick your bootstraps up. Come on. But the last few episodes, oddly enough, since she made the contract with Kyubey, I've liked Sayaka more and more because she's like reflected and realized, but then the end of this episode, it's heartbreaking because I'm like, no, Sayaka, the answer is not to detach yourself from humanity. That's not the answer. But basically, all of these magical girls have at some point gone through the 5 stages of grief. And so that's kind of, Sayaka runs through the 5 stages of grief in this episode. That's literally what happens to her in this episode. And so if you are not familiar with the 5 stages of grief, they are first denial, then anger, bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance. And there's lots of overlap, and they don't necessarily go in that order, but the many psychological websites will say that depression is the hardest part of the 5 stages of grief because you do reflection, there's loneliness, and we'll talk about that in this episode. And then you have your acceptance because there's nothing you can do about it. As Homura says, you can't do anything about it. It's a done deal. You just gotta live with it now and accept the fact you're a zombie and you're gonna be fighting witches forever until you eventually cease to exist. So I feel like the 3 magical girls that we have so far, we'll put Mommy over here. We'll talk about Mommy in a little bit by herself. But I feel like the 3 magical girls that are still around, still alive and kicking, I feel like they all are coming to terms and accepting their fate as a magical girl, but all of them are doing it in a different format. They're doing it in a different way. Homura's way of accepting her fate seems that she distances herself from others. She very much is self-aware of her own destiny. She's self-aware of herself. Homura is the most mysterious character out of all of them because we don't know her backstory. We don't know really anything about her. We just know that she possibly has been a magical girl for a while because she talks about how she's witnessed several magical girls die. So that makes me think she's been around the block for a while. And if your body doesn't age because your soul's separated from it, well then, who knows, right? But my thing is she distances herself from others. She distances herself from the humanity around her. She doesn't want to interact. And when she does interact, she's very cryptic and she's like, hey, don't do this. And she's kind of indifferent about it. But that's her way of accepting her fate and dealing with it. She's like, fine, I'll accept my fate and I won't involve others. We don't know what her wish was. We don't know exactly how her wish came to be. We know that Mommy's wish was to save herself. And we'll put that up here. To save herself from death. Which we'll talk about. We don't know Homura's wish. We don't know what it is. We find out in this episode that Kyoko's wish was to get people to listen to her father. It was a wish for her father, just like Sayaka's was to heal Kamijo. That was their wishes. Their wishes. Kyouko and Sayaka both having wishes that saved others is really interesting to me. But Homura's whole thing is distancing herself from others. She's just like, I'm going to stay away. And if you don't see me, it's one of those things like no news is good news. She's like, if I don't bother you, you don't bother me. It's not my fault, right? That's kind of her hands-off approach to it. And it makes me even more curious to know more about Homura as we go through this, because next week is the Rule of 8. Next week is episode 8, and the Rule of 8 in any 12-episode series, my Rule of 8 is the 8th episode is always really, really good. What's going to be involved in that? I don't know. We'll see. But Kyouko, her way of accepting her fate is, she reminds me a lot of, there's a character in Attack on Titan. I can't say their name because it's a spoiler, but they have freckles. They have freckles. I'll just say that. She's a female character. She has freckles in Attack on Titan. And her whole deal is that she lives for today. She lives for herself. She lives for today. She lives to have no regrets. She does everything for herself. And if she does that, then she has nothing that she will have to regret in life because she didn't do anything to help anybody else but herself. So Kyoko's way of Kyoko's way of accepting her fate as a magical girl is that she is self-serving. Can't have no regrets if you do it all for yourself. If she falls, it's her own fault. If she succeeds, it's her own benefit. No one else to thank but herself, and that way she doesn't have to involve anybody. You'll notice that all of them don't involve others because they've made a wish that has involved others, and it's backfired or gone poorly. Now, Kyoko's wish has caused her to completely, we'll talk about that whole backstory, to completely lose her family. And Homura warned Madoka, being like, if you like your family, you might not want to make this wish because you're going to lose them. And it's kind of not only losing them in the sense of you can't die, you're stuck in this form forever, but also the idea of you could potentially cause them to die if they find out how this works. And we'll talk about that with Kyoko. So it seems that Sayaka, interestingly enough, even though both her and Kyoko have made wishes for the sake of others, just like their schemes are red and blue, right? And their schemes are red and blue are opposite colors. And Homura is a combination of red and blue. She's purple. So I think that's really interesting that you have Homura, who is kind of distancing herself from the humanity around her, but she also seems to be like self-serving in that regard. So she's kind of a mix of Sayaka and Kyoko together, which is really cool. And then you have Kyoko, who's self-serving, no regrets. And then Sayaka is the opposite of Kyoko. She's just like, I'm going to completely detach myself from humanity. And it won't hurt anymore if I just don't think about it. If I don't think about it, if I detach myself from humanity and just kill witches and just get myself invested in the kill, I won't have to think about the fact that I'm a walking shell and my soul is detached from my body and I can never go back to the way I was. If I just detach myself from humanity and do my duty, then I won't have to think about it, and that's how I get through the day. And that's heartbreaking because Kyoko seems very like, she seems committed to, it's sort of like an idea of duty and responsibility. Sayaka is just attaching to the duty and responsibility and nothing else. Like, there's no sense of herself anymore. She's just doing her duty, and that's all. That's her way of atoning. That's her way of getting through the day. Kyoko is completely attaching to her sense of self. She's like, well, I'm all I have, and if I'm stuck in this form, I might as well live life to the fullest. I guess I'll do my duty if it helps me get by, but I'm doing everything for me, right? And then you have Homura, who's a little bit harder to crack because it's like, is she doing this for herself? But she also seems to want to be wanting to protect Madoka and the others from becoming magical girls. So she's like, Homura's a little bit harder to pin down because we don't really know her full motivations yet, right? So we have to question how that works. But we're going to talk about all of this and Mommy as we go through this episode. But this episode was just so heartbreaking. I'm also amazed that we don't instantly go back to the bridge. We just cut to the next scene and it's like, oh, so it looks like, I mean, I don't think Sayaka lives in a big old mansion. Maybe she does. Maybe her parents are loaded. What it seems like is like an apartment complex. This seems like an apartment complex where people just live, but we don't get anything with Sayaka's family, which I find interesting. She like goes to her room, but we don't understand if she lives by herself or if she lives with her family. We don't have any information about that. She does toss that little, when she tosses that soul, like, I love the idea of the anger coming out in this moment, that she tosses the soul gem aside. It's cloudy from her using magic, but she's angry about what's happened. She's angry about being deceived. And then she's kind of in denial about it and gets onto Kyubey for tricking her. Now, Kyubey is interesting, and I think Homura brings up a very good point. Homura doesn't necessarily seem mad at Kyubey. Homura just seems like he's an alien who doesn't understand humans. I'm gonna kill him, but that's been my goal, is to kill him because, he's a threat, but okay. Because Kyubey does not seem to understand people. He's just like, well, I asked you to become a magical girl. I just did that. I don't know what you're bitching about. It's like, And so then she says, you didn't explain. He's like, I just didn't explain what was involved. Like, you didn't ask. That moment where she gets onto him and throws the chair and then she yells at him and says, "Why didn't you tell us?" And he says, "Well, you never asked." Yeah, it's just like, he's like, "You didn't ask the right questions. Why didn't you ask me these things? I don't know what you're getting mad about. I was just doing my little job." It seems almost, and what he seems like is a soul broker. Like the way that Homura describes it, he's like, it feels like there's a whole world that we don't even know about in this series. And the way Homura's suggesting, she's like, the way that Homura talks, she almost makes it seem like there's a whole realm of these creatures like Kyubey that are out to get your souls. And Kyubey just happens to sell them for the right price. And that's how he brokers them. And it's like, what is going on? What is this world we don't know about? And then he's like, "It wouldn't have bothered you one bit if you never found out." And I was like, well, he's like, "Mommy, for example, never did." And that made Sayaka mad, because Sayaka really liked Mommy. And for Kyubey to say, "Well, Mommy never knew that her soul was disconnected from her body," I feel like Mommy never got past the depression stage. I don't know. I feel like Mommy wasn't quite at the acceptance stage yet. I could be wrong. We can talk about it in the comments. But to me, because Mommy seemed to be kind of drowning in this sense of reflection and loneliness, and she was just all alone. And so the moment that Madoka was like, "Well, I'll be your friend forever," she was like, "Oh, well, okay." And that seemed to be like leading to her acceptance, was her being like, "Okay, well, if knowing that I have a friend that I can be with, that makes me want to push forward and keep being a magical girl, because I know that I'll be with you and we'll be friends and be magical girls together." And then there with that. There was a lot of decapitations in this episode. I'm just saying, a lot of imagery of headless people that was slightly problematic. But her getting mad is like, besides, you humans don't even realize you have souls in the first place. That part's interesting, because like, I feel like most humans on a fundamental level believe that they have souls. Because we talk about all the time in conversation. We're like, "Oh, well, do dogs have souls? Do creatures have consciousness? Do they understand emotions? Do they feel pain and everything?" I'm like, Kyubey, I think a lot of humans are aware that they have souls. I just don't think that maybe they are aware of how they work. I think that's the big mystery in life, is we don't know how a soul works. But Kyubey outlines it as being, well, your body's nothing more than a collection of neurons and a centralized cardiovascular system. He's like, yeah, he's like, your body is just this, basically. And when the human body ceases to function, the soul is lost. So he's like, I gave your soul a physical form to prevent that from happening. So he's like, I didn't want to just lose your soul. Those things are valuable. He's like, a form you can pick up and protect with your own hands. That way, you can battle witches with greater safety. I'm like, Kyubey's all about battling these witches. Now, where the witches came from, why it matters so much to battle them. Here's the thing that's kind of weird, is that the witches, they don't really seem to be, I mean, they are a threat. They target people, like when they targeted Hitomi and everything, but they're not like widespread. And they don't seem to like be all over the place. Like, I don't know. I feel like with curses and stuff from other series, the characters hear about their attacks a lot. Here, you don't hear about the witch attacks until they literally go searching for them, right? And then they find them and it's a problem. But I guess they keep saying that they're eating humans as they go. So I guess they're like just a silent threat that gets bigger and bigger and bigger and more problematic. We still don't know where the first witch came from. I'm sure Kyubey knows, but he's not telling us yet. Interesting. But yeah, he's like, well, I just made your bodies better for fighting witches. I don't know what you're complaining about. Like, I did you a favor, is literally what he's saying. And making it sound like it was a great thing that he did you this honor. And Sayaka's like, nobody asked you to do that. And he's like, no, you don't understand what it's like to fight, do you? So that's when he does the thing about the spear. He's like, because I separated your soul from your body, you're not going to experience pain the same way. He's like, normally an attack would really hurt you, but because I've separated your soul, you can withstand attacks and they're not going to hurt the same way. And so you're able to fight. Now, he gets to this point here where he talks about, like, after he gets there, he's like, pain inhibition was the only reason you remained standing against Kyouko. And then, like, he puts his hand. The fact that Kyubey can control her soul gem is a bit problematic. But he makes this point of saying that your consciousness in the soul and your soul is connected to the body, but there is no longer a consciousness to your body connection. That's been severed. Your consciousness goes to the soul goes to the body, but you no longer have this connection for your consciousness to your body, so there is, quote unquote, no pain. As long as your soul is okay, this part doesn't matter, is what he's saying. Now he's like, I've conveniently separated your consciousness from your body, so you can't feel pain anymore. Haha. But he also talks a little bit more about that. What does he say there? He's like, it was only possible. He's like, that's how you were able to survive that battle. And then he just casually says, what does he say there? He just casually says, as Sayaka gets up and realizes that she doesn't hurt anymore, he's like, in time, you can learn to completely cut off pain. But I wouldn't recommend that, since it tends to slow you down. And that's kind of the point where I feel like that's a big foreshadowing and a big red flag, because at the end of this episode, she seemed to talk about how it doesn't hurt, how she doesn't feel pain anymore, and how she's going to detach herself from that humanity so that she won't feel pain. But I feel like that is a big red flag, because Kyubey just said, if you do that and you keep doing that, it's going to slow you down. You need to feel, because that's kind of the thing. If you don't feel pain, you don't realize when your body's in danger. That's why pain is there. It sucks. Pain is a problem, but pain is a way for your body to recognize when it's in danger, and it gives you the sense of adrenaline. It gives you a fight or flight sense. It gives you the ability to rebound or counteract. If you cut off the pain, you're not going to realize if you're in trouble, and that could lead you to you dying. And I feel like this is foreshadowing that Sayaka might be in danger in the future if she gets addicted. It's kind of like painkillers. If you get addicted to painkillers, you don't feel the pain anymore, but the problem is it becomes addicting, and then you don't know when your body's in trouble until it's too late. And that's what I'm afraid is going to happen, is Sayaka, in order for her to accept the things that are happening around her as a magical girl, she's going to keep cutting off the pain and just doing her duty as a magical girl and killing witches. And it's going to corrupt her. And she's also going to get addicted to it, because it's a way for her to not think about what's happening. And then it's going to end up getting her killed, is what I'm afraid of. At least Kyouko is like, yeah, I'm self-serving, but I'm aware of myself and I'm aware of what's going on. So it's such a problematic thing. But yeah, and she's like, why did you do this to us? And he's like, well, you had a wish important enough to commit yourself to a life of battle, didn't you? And to be fair to Kyubey, this little demon cat, to be fair to Kyubey, he did tell them, I'll grant you any wish. You just have to sign a contract to work for me. He did say that. He just didn't tell them what all was involved in said wish. And your wish came true, didn't it? Isn't that what you asked for? Yeah, so let's get past this OP. Can you accept your true feelings? I feel like for Sayaka, the answer is no. She can't accept her true feelings, and that's the problem. Sayaka's biggest downfall this whole series has been that she can't accept her feelings. I feel like Madoka at least communicates with people around her, and Madoka isn't afraid of asking questions and trying to reflect and figure things out for herself. She seems very open to communication. Sayaka's not really. Sayaka just puts on a front, but then she berates herself and she doesn't want to communicate or find out. She can't accept how she feels about something and progress with it. And it's so frustrating. So we have the teacher come back, which is exciting. The teacher seems perfectly fine. And then she's like, let's start class. And then they notice when she looks over that her desk isn't there for the day. I think it's interesting that if the student isn't there, their desk just is, they don't leave an empty desk. It's just not there. And then we cut back to Sayaka's enormous bedroom. Her bedroom is huge. I don't know if it's supposed to be a studio apartment or if she just has a wealthy family. There's lots of mirrors. It's all blue toned with some pink. And then, of course, she's obsessed now with her soul gem, which seems to be getting darker and darker, which is slightly problematic. So meanwhile, I do like the idea Again, oh, also, there's also like 3 chairs around her bed for no reason. Just 3 random chairs. I do like the top of this school and the fact that we get Homura talking with Madoka and having a conversation. And Madoka's like, did you know this was going to happen? And Homura's like, yeah. And she's like, well, why didn't you tell us? And then she says, well, nobody's ever believed me before that I've warned. So I do like that Homura is pretty honest with Madoka. There's still some mysterious stuff that Homura doesn't want to talk about. But she is honest. She's like, look, I've tried to tell people before in the past. They didn't believe me. So I didn't want to try to tell you again. I'm just trying to... It's like Homura has done trial and error with other girls trying to tell them not to become magical girls. And she's just like, well, this didn't work, so now I'm going to try this. This didn't work, so now I'm going to try this. And then what's interesting is Homura, when Madoka says, why would Kyubey do something so cruel? Homura's like, he doesn't think it's cruel. I like Homura so much because she's very honest. And she has a lot of, like, wisdom, which makes me be like, how old are you, girl? Because she says, he doesn't think it's cruel. He's a creature that doesn't understand human values. He's just said it was an appropriate payment for bringing about a miracle. He's like, this is the price you pay to get what you wanted. And Madoka's like, well, that's not fair at all. And Homura's like, well, that's what y'all got. All Sayaka-chan wanted was to heal the person that she loved. But Homura's like, but it's a miracle. It wouldn't have been possible in real life. He would have been, his hand would never have healed. So healing him was something that was impossible. And that's the price she had to pay to have it done. And she says this, normally a miracle costs far more than a human life. So Homura knows a lot about this whole miracle business. She talks about miracles and their cost. How does she know all this? How long's she been around the block? We don't know. She's not telling us. It normally costs more than a human life. But that's the price for which Kyubey sells them. So there's like this idea of miracle brokers. That people are just brokering miracles and selling them. And Kyubey is just like, yeah, if you fight witches, you give a miracle. I don't know. So that begs the question of what the hell is Kyubey? He's not a creature that's normally of this world, but what is Kyubey? What is his tie to miracles? How does this work in this world? And then Sayaka-chan will be able to go back to her normal life. And Homura's like, no, I told you. This is it. She's going to be a magical girl forever. And I feel for Madoka because she's like, but Sayaka saved me. She's like, if she hadn't been a magical girl, Hitomi and I would have died. And Homura's like, don't confuse gratitude with responsibility. So I love that idea that gratitude is not the same as responsibility. And she's like, what does she say there? She talks about guilt as well. Because she tells Madoka, she says, there is no way for you to save her. If you're thinking of returning the favor to alleviate your own sense of guilt, then just forget that. I suggest you reconsider. So don't associate guilt is not going to be alleviated by trying to take responsibility as well. And I'm glad that Homura says that. I don't know if Madoka's going to listen to her, but I'm glad that Homura basically says, she's like, look, you can be grateful that Sayaka saved you. That's awesome. But don't feel like don't let it like guilt trip you. Because Kyubey's been trying to guilt trip Madoka. Kyubey's like, well, if only you would become a magical girl and help your friends, she wouldn't be by herself battling these witches. Like, Kyubey is trying to guilt trip her and make her feel like her being guilty means she needs to take responsibility. And Homura's telling her the opposite. She's like, no, 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 no. Sayaka chose this. She made her decision. She did save you both, but that's part of her responsibility as a magical girl. She made that choice, thus she was capable. Her saving you does not mean you have to pay her back. That's not how this works. And I think that's really important, but I also think that lends to why the magical girls don't work together, because it very much is, once you become a magical girl, it's kind of a dog-eat-dog world, and you all are in it, you're in it for yourself. And I also think that, as we find out with Sayaka and Homura and Kyouko, the reason why a lot of these magical girls don't hang out together is they are all processing their grief in different ways. And those ways are not always compatible. And so it makes them standoffish towards each other, which is really problematic because if they work together, they could probably be more effective to fighting the witches. But it's like, it's almost like by design, the system isolates them. By design, the entire process of becoming a magical girl makes them isolated and working for themselves, and that they're incapable of working with others because they're all so messed up. Is basically what ends up happening. So she's like, I suggest you reconsider. You're not going to be able to do anything. My thing is, if Madoka becomes a magical girl, why? That's my big question. Because Homura's told her, she's like, you can't save Sayaka. You can't save me. Can't save Kyouko. Don't become a magical girl. So my thing is, what would Homura's miracle be? And why would she make it? And what good is it going to be for her to become a magical girl? My thing is, right now, based on what Madoka has seen, she knows, and I wish that Madoka had talked to Kyouko, especially about the family bit, to be like, I like my family, I don't want to lose them. And Homura's told him, like, you'll lose your family if you become a magical girl, because she's probably lost her family, Kyoko's lost her family. I have a bad feeling about this whole thing with Hitomi. We'll talk about it in a minute. But I'm like, Madoka has a really good relationship with her mom and her dad and her brother. So why would she become a magical girl and potentially ruin that? Unless they get put in danger. I don't know. So that, I still don't know why Madoka would choose to become a magical girl, and I don't want to know theories yet. I want to wait and see till the end of the season what's going to happen. I feel like she's going to become a magical girl, but at this point it's like, well, to what purpose? To what end? I don't know. And then she's like, why are you so cold? And she's like, it's because I'm no longer human as well. And I feel like Homura, for, her acceptance is, she's like, I made this deal. I'm magical girl. I'm not technically human anymore because my soul's been separated from my body. So I've just accepted it, and I'm trying to help you, but at the end of the day, I can't make that decision for you. Like, just that indifference, right? But I hate the idea of... Kyouko does not seem to view herself as not human. She almost seems to view herself as more human than normal because she's able to have these certain things now that she didn't have before. But Homura and Sayaka seem to be separating themselves from their humanity. And that makes me so sad. Because even if you are dead, even if your soul is separated, it's still your soul. So you are still... technically human by that standpoint, but it's so sad. And the minute we go back to Sayaka, it's like the reflection of her in the mirror, right? She's like, how can I visit Kyosuke after we turned into this thing? So just like Homura's like, well, I'm cold and blunt because I'm not like you anymore. I'm not human. And Sayaka is now going through the same thing that Kyouko, or that Homura went through. I do want to make note that the trash bin by Sayaka's bed has a little diamond on it that's the same shape as Homura, which is interesting. I'm curious to know if Sayaka and Homura will have a conversation now that Sayaka is maybe going through the same motions that Homura has gone through. Will she and Homura have a conversation? I would love that. I would love Sayaka to have a decent conversation with Homura, like magical girl to magical girl, now that she's changed, to know. But she feels like she can't be with Kyosuke anymore because she's dead, which is true. She can't be. That's the thing, right? And then she goes out. I like that we see like her nail and everything with the ring, and she opens up the door and she can hear Kyouko, who's sitting there with the ring herself. And it's always on like the middle finger, right? It's always on the middle finger is where it's at. Or is it on a different finger? Hers is on the... Kyoko's is on the middle finger. Where is Sayaka's? I want to get Sayaka's. Which finger is it for her? Is it the middle finger as well? Yeah, it is. Interesting. And I think it was the same way for Homura as well. It's almost like they're all going to flip off Kyubey with their middle fingers. They're just going to flip Kyubey off the whole time. Why not? Also, just the structure and design of these worlds it's something that's just like randomly there for a hot second. You just look and see, but like these random fountains in this park, they're just random fountains that make no sense. It's like all the architecture and design, everything. It's kind of like none of it's haphazard, but none of it makes sense. And you're like, wait, what? So that part's really interesting. But yeah, so they have this conversation, and Kyoko's trying to ask if she has any regrets. Do you have regrets what was done to your body? And she's like, it doesn't really matter. I'm able to do what I want because I acquired these powers. She's like, oh, you got what you deserved. Yeah, you can think of it that way. So it's like they're all like, this is the price we've paid. So what do we do with this now that we've got to this point? And Kyoko's solution is, if you live for yourself, then everything you do is your own fault. She's like, if you just think of nobody else but yourself, then you can't be mad when anything happens because it's all just it's your own fault. Which again explains why a lot of the magical girls probably don't work with one another, because they're all not wanting to involve each other in their fates anymore. They want their fate to be their own, which is problematic when you're fighting a monster that probably could be solved in a much easier format if you all worked together and had teamwork. I don't know. And maybe that's going to be Madoka's thing. Maybe Madoka will become a magical girl to unite them all together and be like, hey, we're all in this together. Let's do this. I mean, I don't want Madoka to become magical girl, but I feel like she's going to. So if she's going to become magical girl, then she might as well do it to like unite them all together and maybe, I don't know, kill Kyubey. So he can't turn any other girls into magical girls and ruin their lives. Maybe. I mean, at this point, if we're thinking about it, I don't know the relationship between the witches and Kyubey. Kyubey eats the grief seeds and what that does for him. However, I feel like if they kill Kyubey, I don't think it'll make the situation worse. So maybe they'll all band together. Maybe the whole point of the Rebellion movie, and I don't know anything about it other than the title, is them all getting together and being like, hey, if we can kill Kyubey, there won't be any more magical girls. I'm down for that. Down for that, sure. I mean, why not? You'll have no reason to resent others, and you'll never have any regrets. You can just get through just about anything if you think of it that way. And I mean, it really is at this point. The thing about it is how you process grief. There is no wrong way to do it. It's very individualized. It depends on the person. It depends on the situation. And I can't fault Kyoko because she's handling her grief her own way. She's like, this is how I get through the day. How are you going to get through the day? The only thing is, I feel like in Kyoko's case, it's not too problematic because she understands what she's doing and why she's doing it. The thing that makes me heartbroken for Sayaka is that Sayaka's trying to detach herself from her own humanity, but Sayaka has so much humanity, and that's part of what makes her a compelling character, is that she's compassionate. She made the wish to save her friend. So her detaching herself from her own humanity is attaching herself from her identity and what makes her her. So it's like she's denying her very identity as a form of coping. And cool that you have to cope with grief, but then you're not Sayaka anymore. So I'm like, I wonder if that's going to become a thing next episode, and Madoka's going to be like, you're not you anymore, and that's a problem. So we go to this church. I want to point out some really interesting things. One, there are two trees symmetrically next to each other when they first approach the church. Everything in here, it's like two things parallel. There's like two boards, and she smashes the board that's in the middle, right? Almost like a cross, right? She does that. There's an altar. There's two chandeliers. There's two altars. There's two of everything, which is very interesting. And then there's like a chandelier that's fallen to the ground. Also, want to point out, the chandeliers look like grief seeds. They have like a little point on the end where they were hanging, and then the inside looks like a grief seed. Do what you will with that imagery. And she has the bag of apples. And so I'm glad we get Kyoko's backstory, but she also, her handing the apple to Sayaka feels like the snake handing Eve the apple in the Garden of Eden, being like, here, you're going to have knowledge now, and you do what you want with that knowledge. Now, the point where Sayaka, at first I was like, is Sayaka going to throw away the apple because she doesn't feel like she needs to eat anymore because I guess they technically don't have to eat anymore. They're just shells. It's just out of habit. But when she throws the apple down and Kyouko gets mad at her for wasting food, that part was really interesting where she's like, don't ever waste food. And she talks about how her family suffered and were hungry. I'm glad that we get Kyoko's backstory. I love it. She's like, this was my dad's church. And can we just talk about the art style? Can we talk about the art style? The art style in this whole flashback was gorgeous. Like the idea of the stick figure puppets and the idea of how that all works there. Where he has like the sister and the mom and the dad looks like he has red hair and the candle flame is green. And there's all in there. He's the type of person who'd cry just from reading the morning paper and put a serious thought into how to make the world a better place. And we have like his emblem for his religion is the same one that's on her, the gem, the eye. I love how that all connects together. That's so cool. And so he tries to start this new religion with all of these people and try to start something new and do his own thing. But people didn't want that. They wanted the sermons. They didn't want his own spin on it. So they stopped coming and stopped listening to him. And I like that she tells the story with the puppets. I thought that part was really good. And he got excommunicated from the church. No one would listen to what he had to say. And then that part, like, you see this, like, the cross, you see the preachers, like, them sitting there with their heads, like, completely, like, just smashed in, and it looks like blood. It shouldn't have been a surprise. From the outside, it would have looked like some sketchy cult. But she talks about it, saying that our whole family was left with nothing, not even food. And then you see like the two sisters and you see the apples with the cores and the cobs. I couldn't accept it. And the thing about it is, to her, she doesn't think her dad was doing anything wrong. She's like, my dad wasn't doing anything wrong. It was just different from what people were used to hearing. And I love that we see like the church and the flames. Again, simultaneously, you have the two trees, the two candlelights, the two groups of teddy bears, everything. Like the number two, it's just like this duality. If they had listened to him for 5 minutes, it would have been obvious he was right. But no one listened to him. I couldn't stand it, and it was unforgivable. And then it keeps going back to this imagery of him with the head popped off. This show loves to decapitate things a lot. And then she couldn't bear the fact no one would understand him. And my wish was that everyone would listen to my dad's words. Now, the fallen chandelier has like the little pointed end pointing at her like a grief seed. So again, I don't know the connection of the witches to the magical girl. This episode also tries to seem to get us to deflect away from certain things, like Madoka being a prodigy. Don't worry about it. The witches and the magical girl connection. Don't worry about it. The fact that Kyubey can eat grief seeds. Don't worry about it. Like all these things we've kind of had in the back of our heads going, that seems like a red flag. This episode was like, don't worry about those things. They won't matter at all. And I'm like, will they not matter, show? Or are you going to spring them on us at the last minute, right? So she used her wish to make everyone listen to her dad's words. And I was like, that's a broad wish. And Sayaka's even like, oh shit. And the next morning, everyone came. And like the idea of all having the red eyes, and they couldn't, even no matter how good his sermons were, they wouldn't get rid of the witches. Which is an interesting part here, because we said that the witches come from despair, right? They come from despair. That part seems like such a throwaway line, but that's interesting because her wish was to alleviate her dad's sorrows. So you would think the whole thing was that magical girls are supposed to create hope. And it's like you become a magical girl in exchange for this hope. But it doesn't get rid of the witches that are being created from despair. So that part's interesting. I don't know what the other connection with that is. We'll see. But she kept fighting. She's like, no matter how good his sermons were, it wouldn't get rid of the witches. I thought that's where I would come in. And so I got hyped up like an idiot. And it shows her like fighting the witches there. And battling them. And then we see like all this stuff here. So there's like little temperature gauges. It looks like a witch name, but I can't see what the witches' names are. And there's like mechanical hands and like robot arms. We'd save the world together, he from the light and I from the shadows. So she's like, yeah, he would do these sermons and I would fight behind the scenes and we'd save the world together, which was a very stupid idea because it wasn't true. So interesting, right? Interesting indeed that she tried to use her duty to be a hero. And that did not work out. Sayaka seems, up until the point at the end of this episode, to still want to be this hero. But at the very end of the episode, it doesn't seem like she wants to be that anymore. So what are we going to do with that? I wish Madoka could have heard this. But my dad found out what was going on. And he lost it when he realized the followers were only there because of magic. And he called me a witch who swayed the hearts of others. Oh, the irony. And that's kind of my thing, is that they are kind of witches. Because their wishes defy the impossible and can sway the hearts of others. So what's the connection there? But my thing is, how did he find out? How did he find out she was battling witches? I guess, did a witch come and they were all encircled and he had to see her become a magical girl? Is that what ended up happening? Like, how did he find out? So the trick is, you can't let the people you know find out you're a magical girl. Because in her case, him finding out she was a magical girl made him go crazy. So if Kamijo finds out that Sayaka's a magical girl and that she's responsible for his arm healing, what is that going to do? Are we going to see that? Is that going to play out? Homura says that you end up alone, but when she said you end up alone, she didn't say, you know, because they all died necessarily. In Sayaka's case, she's going to end up alone because he can't be with her because she's already dead. Yep. And he says, oh, the irony. I was the one who'd been fighting real witches every night. And then I like that we see the light bulb flashing. And then we see, like, all this stuff, like the light bulb flashing. And there's, like, a drain. We see the daughter with her, like, body parts dismembered. And the mom, like, they're all cut to pieces. Like, he just murdered them. Yeah. That is so disturbing. He started binge drinking and lost his grip on reality. And we see, like, the bodies decapitated, like, the outlines of the bodies. He killed himself and his family. That whole, like, part there, and then we see, like, him fall in the pile of, like, body parts. And then that's it. And then it just burns up. And only I was left. The imagery and the way that was drawn was incredible. Right? So she's like, my wish destroyed my entire family. Because I made that wish for someone else without knowing what he really wanted. I swore to myself I'd never use magic for others again. So, and there's the thing. Mommy, she kind of warned them. She's like, I don't know if I'd make that wish for somebody else. Like, you don't know what they really want. So, I'm wondering if Sayaka, if that's going to come back to bite her, giving Kamijo the wish. And so, the thing about it is, Kyouko seems to have accepted the fact that she's only going to use magic for herself, even though it's still painful that she's not around anybody. Because here's the downside. If you're selfish and you only use things for yourselves, nobody wants to be around you anymore. And then she's still alone. So that's the problem. But in Sayaka's case, what is her result going to be from detaching herself? Like, what is that going to end up doing to her? Because she seems like she's berating herself more and more, whereas Kyoko's not really berating herself. She's just kind of pissed that she's by herself. I don't know, right? But Sayaka's she's like, I'd use my powers only for myself. Miracles aren't free. If you wish for hope, then an equal amount of despair is scattered across the world, and it cancels out, and that's how balance is maintained. And like we see them on either side of the column on the archway, as if they're on polar opposite sides of the spectrum. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. You can't have something good without something bad happening to balance it out. That makes sense. It does. Oh, it's just so hard. And Sayaka's like, why are you telling me this? And she's like, well, you just need to stop worrying and do whatever you want. And then Sayaka's like, well, then why are you worried about me if you're just living for yourself? And she's like, well, we started off with the same mistake. We made our wish for someone else. She's like, I'm just trying to help you. She's like, you've already paid a price too high for what you got. So now you should just try to get your money's worth. Like me. I've come to realize my mistake and you're still making yours. And that's why Sayaka is like, no, we're different. So for Kyouko, she's like, I sinned. I paid a price that was too high. Now I'm stuck here, so I might as well get my money's worth. And Sayaka's like, no, I don't think the price I paid was too high. I think it was worth it to save Kamijo. And she still has this sense of duty and this sense of honor about herself. And she's like, I'm not going to just abandon others and throw a pity party for myself. I don't regret my actions. I don't believe the price I paid was too high. And I love that. I love that shot of them against the mosaic, and it looks like that moment where the angels, like, it looks like it's piercing Kyoko's heart, and it's coming from, like, if you look at it, the shadow of the angels coming from Sayaka and piercing Kyoko's heart, like with her words being like, I don't regret my actions. Do you regret your actions? That's such a good shot. Oh, yep. I love that. I can do wonderful things with this power if I use them right. She's like, I can still be a hero. And what about you? I love that she's like, how did you get those apples? She's like, I can use my powers for good. I understand what I've paid, but I'm okay with this price. I can still be a hero and help others. You're a thief. You stole those apples. They're not yours. She's like, so how are you any better than me? Oh my gosh, it's so good. And then of course, Kyouko doesn't have an answer. She's like, I don't want your apples. And the thing about it is, Sayaka's not being self-righteous in that moment. She's just like, no, I gotta fight things my own way. So I like that we've just established throughout this series that Kyouko and Sayaka are very different people, and they're coming at this from very different angles. And you can understand both sides, and you can find both sides to be right in their own way, shape, and form. And I think that's interesting. I just want more with Homura. She's like, if the way I do things is gonna interfere with you and the way you live your life, then I no longer bear you any ill will, but nor will I lose. And then she walks away, and I like that Kyouko just eats and tears at the skin of that apple, like, out of anger and grief to try to, like, to just pacify herself. Like, her eating is a way to, like, you know, get through that grief. But here's my point here, is why the magical girls don't work together is because it's their actions and how they align or don't align with each other. Now it makes sense why the magical girls don't work together, because they're all processing their grief in different ways. And Sayaka's like, I'm going to handle this the way I want to, and if you don't agree with me, then just stay away. And that's what they all end up doing, because they can't process in the same way, and so they end up not working together. So then we have her going back to school, and she tells Madoka that she's fine, and everything's cool. And she's like, I was just a little sick. She's like, I'm fine now. Madoka seems okay about that. And then we see Kamijo coming back to school. And because he's still, like, on crutches, but he's going to be able to walk. And Madoka, I feel like Madoka knows that Sayaka likes him. But anyway, all of his friends are like, oh, you're back. You're going to be okay. And everything's cool. And then we cut to Sayaka. And Madoka's like, well, I'm really glad that he's doing all right. And Sayaka's like, why don't you go say hi to him? Or Madoka says that. And then Hitomi's kind of looking at her, and she's like, no, I'm okay for now. Because here's the thing. If she really liked him, you know, bar what's happened to Sayaka and her experience as magical girl, but from Hitomi's perspective, if she really liked him, she'd, like, run up and be like, hey, Kamijo, how's it going? And that's what I thought she was going to do. But now that she knows that she's a magical girl and that she's technically already dead, she realizes, like, what's the point? He can't be with me. So why would I torture myself by getting around him and make myself feel even worse? Why would I do that? It's kind of like, and we'll talk about that here in a second, it's kind of like if you like somebody and then they get a girlfriend and you're like, you could be a homewrecker, I guess, and we'll talk about that with Sayaka. You could be a homewrecker, or you could be like, why am I around him then? If I like him and he has a girlfriend, then that's just gonna make me feel horrible because I know I can't be with him, so let's not do that. And then just avoid him. And so Sayaka's kind of in that boat. She's like, no, I'm okay. And Madoka's like, what are you doing? And Hitomi's like, okay. Does she not like him? I like that we cut to like her having the hot dog and the coffee. Like, just what a random thing. And again, nobody's in this restaurant. Nobody eats in this restaurant. This restaurant is the best place for drama to go down because nobody's there to bother you. Nobody's asking about drama. Nobody cares. Everybody's like, whatever, we're going to do what we can. Nobody's like questioning anything. Nobody is there to watch you stir the tea. And she's like, what do you want to talk about? So Madoka's not there. I thought she was there at first, but she's not. And she's like, I need some relationship advice. She's like, I've been keeping something from you and Madoka for a while now. And the moment she said that, I was like, here we go. I thought that Kamijo was going to go and find some other girl to get with, and Sayaka was going to get jealous. But this is worse. This is worse. Because Hitomi is like, are you friends or do you like him? And if you don't like him, I'm going to make a move. So you got till tomorrow to tell me, or I'm going to make a move. And it's even worse because Sayaka likes him, but she knows she can't make a move. So it's like, she's damned if she do, she's damned if she don't. It's like, oh my gosh. And she's like, I've been attracted to him. And she says, well, I wouldn't expect that from you. He's a lucky guy. And she's like, you've known him for a long time. And then Sayaka makes things worse by saying, yeah, we're old acquaintances. And she's like, is that really all? And I give Hitomi props. She's like, I'm not going to lie to myself anymore. I'm going to hide my feelings. She's like, can you accept your true feelings? And Sayaka's like, of all things to ask her. And I can't get mad at Hitomi because Hitomi's like, you're my friend. And I'm going to be real. You're my friend and you're precious to me. I don't want to steal him from you or try to court him behind your back. So I'm being upfront and transparent. If you like this guy, go for it. And I will stand back and let you go. But if you don't like him and you're just friends, I'm going to go for it. And the thing about it is that they don't talk about in this episode is Hitomi could hit on him and he might turn her down. He might say no. He might tell Hitomi he doesn't want to be with her. But Sayaka's not thinking about that. Sayaka, who probably thinks Hitomi is perfect, they described her, like Madoka described her as princess in the first episode. They probably think, oh, if she goes and hits on him, he's going to fall in love with her. Because they're teenagers and that's what they think. So they're not thinking of like long term. And I just love that shot of Sayaka just like isolated. You've spent far more time with him than I have. And she's like, that's why you should have the right to go after him first. It's like, oh. And Sayaka's like, oh, well, you know. And she's like, well, I'm going to confess. The one thing that I do get on to Hitomi as is that she's like, well, I'm just going to wait till tomorrow afternoon. I'm like, you ain't going to give her a week? You ain't going to get, like you've been holding back this whole time and holding your feelings back. You ain't going to wait any longer than a day? Okay, Ursula. But I feel for Sayaka. She's like, decide on a course of action you won't regret. And then she lets her go. Oh, it's awful. And then she's like, what am I going to do? Right? Oh. So meanwhile, Madoka waits on her to come out. And I'm glad that Madoka is there as her, like, friend to be there to comfort her because Kyubey ain't comforting anything. Kyubey ain't comforting a damn thing. No, no, no. And that's when she's like, I don't deserve your kindness and your friendship. And Madoka's like, that's not true. And that's when Sayaka admits, she's like, I almost regretted what I'd done. And I respect Sayaka for saying this because it's so, like, it's a real thought a teenage girl or even an adult girl would have. You know, adult woman would have this, being like, if I hadn't saved Hitomi, I wouldn't have to worry about her going after Kamijo. But she's like, I'm an awful person for thinking that because I can't go after Kamijo. So she's like, I feel like a terrible person because I wished ill will on someone who hasn't done anything wrong. And that's so human, right? And that's so human. And that's so relatable. And it made me like really love Sayaka and her character, which makes her at the very end so heartbreaking that she's choosing to just deny her humanity so that it can like separate her from her grief. Mommy would have been ashamed to have known me. And I like that Madoka like hugs her and is like, oh, that's not true. And she's like, I'm going to lose Kyosuke to Hitomi and there's nothing I can do about it. And when she describes, like, how he wouldn't hold her or kiss her, I'm like, oh, my God. Like, that part was just Heartbreak City, right? Awful. And so then, yeah, she's like, I feel better now. I'm great. And Madoka's like, are you? Feel like that wasn't much of a therapy session. So meanwhile, I like that we get to see, I didn't exactly understand what was going on at first, but what it is you can see from the outside in the witch's territory. It looks like a doily. It looks like a lace doily from the outside in. And you see that, which is interesting. But yeah. And so Homura gets onto Kyouko saying like, what, you're not going to go help her? And she's like, you're just sitting here watching. And so Kyouko says, well, she's fighting a witch today, not a familiar. It'll drop a grief seed. It's not a pointless hunt. And so Homura's like, you're going to let her just take your prey for that, huh? You're just going to let her do it? And Kyoko's like, I like that she's just eating nonstop, right? And that's when they notice something bad's happening. She's like, damn, that idiot. She's having trouble. It's interesting that you can tell that you're having trouble from the outside. That's good to know. This world and the way that it looks with all of the crosses, it looks like a kaleidoscope. But you have like, okay, so we get the witch's name. I don't know what the witch's name is, but it almost looks, talk about, you know, a church and priestly setting. It looks like a very religious figure there with the name. And then it looks like a flower opening up. I like how they all look like just outlines in their colors and the primary colors. And you can just see their eyes. But it looks like a hand holding a torch. And the torch has a sun, like a light coming out. And the witch is just praying in front of the torch. How weird. Like the witch design is interesting. And she's fighting these like dragon looking things that come out from it. And you can't really see anything. It's all in like black outlines. The artwork was beautiful for it. It was great. But this is the heartbreaking part. Like as she's going towards the witch, this tree grows out from the witch, which is the design of it's really, really cool. And as she's falling back, and Madoka, of course, is there, that's when Kyouko comes to save her. And you can see like the outlines of blood. Also, Madoka in that world with the black outline looks like how she does in the ED, which concerns me a wee bit. But she's like, I couldn't just sit there any longer. And she says, stay back. I'll show you how it's done. And that's when Sayaka says, get out of my way. I'll do it myself. So again, Madoka is seeing these magical girls being selfish and not wanting to help each other. Instead, it's like they're taking their anger and grief out on one another, saying that they'll do it themselves. And she cut the head off the witch. But of course, the witch, you know, hasn't died yet and has all these tendrils come out. And then poor Sayaka, she's like, don't tell me. And the part where she like starts laughing is heartbreaking. Like the witch starts basically like trying to attack her in this last moments. I thought she was going to die. I thought she was like going to kill Sayaka, but apparently not. Sayaka works through it and fights her. And just starts like just mutilating her and taking her anger out, saying it's true. If I just detach myself, then it doesn't hurt at all. Oh. And then it grabs her, but it looks like she manages to like slice the witch out. Oh. And then you hear, stop, please stop. I don't know if the stop, please stop was Madoka, or if it was Sayaka, or if it was the witch. Or if it was Madoka, she's like, stop, you're detaching yourself from your humanity, and you're not going to be Sayaka anymore. You're not going to be yourself. If it's the witch, then that adds a layer. And if it's Sayaka telling herself, like, why are you detaching yourself from who you are? Oh my gosh. What can we do, right? What can we do? So, oh, this episode was so much, and it's terrifying, and I feel for Sayaka. Like, I've really come to like her character the last couple episodes, and now I feel for her because I feel like she's going down a road where she's not going to be herself anymore, and I worry about that, and I worry about what it's going to do to Madoka, and what's going to end up happening with Kamijo and Hitomi. I really want to watch the next episode, but I'm going to wait a little bit. I'm gonna wait a wee bit, and see, but it's gonna be really hard not to watch the next episode. I'm gonna tell you that right now. So we'll see, though. So in any case, I'm excited to hear your comments down below. I hope you enjoyed this reaction and discussion, but this episode was so good, and I cannot wait for the Rule of 8 next week. So we'll see how that happens. Oh, my heart is broken for Sayaka. Don't let go of your humanity, girl. Don't detach yourself. Feeling pain is not a bad thing. Damn it, Kyubey. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'll be back real soon with more Puella Magi Madoka Magica. Bye.